interesting because methane's also gonna slow down motility. Mm-hmm. So there's always usually going to be a constipation predominant issue in people that have methane. Have you ever seen it not be more diarrhea predominant? Or
I feel like I have. I can't think of individual patients right now, but I feel like I have, because I know I've had the conversation with people at least once or twice where people were like, yeah, isn't this supposed to be the constipation variety? And we're like, yeah. So yeah, every now and then you get that. Here's the thing too, though. It could be, run with me on this and I'll play devil's advocate. Like, yes, it could be true that methane SIBO, quote unquote, I'm just going to call it that. It could be true that sometimes methane SIBO presents as diarrhea rather than constipation. Or it could be that you have two different things going on. And you have methane SIBO and you also have, I don't even know, like insert
like dysbiosis
and dysbiosis
in the
Crohn's,
large intestines. Yeah, right.
Yeah, like, insert any number of things. I just got a stool test back today on somebody who, to the best of our knowledge, doesn't have like a raging case of SIBO. We hypothesize maybe a touch, but I just got a stool test back from a patient today from LabCorp that she has one of the funky strains of E. coli. I think it was like enteropathogenic E. coli, I think. Blatant infection.
Right.
So I forget what my point in telling you that was, honestly. I think there might have been a point.
The point is that you can still have diarrhea because other factors in the ecology of the gut could be promoting diarrhea while you might have methane IMO or methane issues in the small intestines.
I think that's, honestly, I feel like that's more likely than saying, oh, that methane causes constipation like 95% of the time, and then 5% of the time you're just a weirdo. Like, I have a hard time believing that. I think that it's probably that is not what's causing your diarrhea, and you need to hunt a little bit more. Like, maybe you have candida. Maybe you have, I mean, again, like, insert any number of pathogeneses here. But yes, typically methane is thought to cause constipation. And what's interesting too is that from what I've understood so far, when you look at like a SIBO breath test, for example, and you see hydrogen, you could look at somebody who has a peak of hydrogen, say like 40 parts per million, and then another person who has like 80 parts per million, and then another person who has 8 million parts per million. And it doesn't necessarily correlate with the degree of symptoms. Right. Like, I've seen this studied at least a bit where like hydrogen, like the more hydrogen you produce, doesn't necessarily correlate with the degree of diarrhea or bloating or pain that you have. Right. But methane does seem to track well with the degree of constipation. So the person who has 10 parts per million methane overproduction is probably going to be somewhat constipated versus the person who has 20 or 40 or 1,000 or whatever. Like, the more methane you have or the more methanogen overgrowth that you have, probably that's going to track with more severe constipation from what I've seen, at least. Right. So,
such an interesting point. And I agree. I think that hydrogen can be definitely a more finicky gas. It might not correlate with symptoms, but you're totally right. It seems like the severity of symptoms go up with the breath test result for methane.
Which again, like, it makes me think twofold. If more methane equals more constipation, from what we can tell, then again, it really makes me think that the people who have diarrhea methane problems, like, I'm thinking that the diarrhea is caused by something else, and the methane should be causing constipation. Like, when you see a linear tracking like that of data points, like, you could be reasonably certain that it's going to be really causing that thing. Like, it's really causing constipation. So it makes me think that idea that like some people get diarrhea from methane SIBO is probably not true. And it also makes me think maybe the hydrogen overproduction, maybe the SIBO itself isn't the problem that's always causing the pain or the bloating or the whatever in the people who have hydrogen-based SIBO. The ways that you could assess for methane are going to be either a breath test, right? So you could do a glucose or lactulose-based breath test and look for that SIMO, the small intestinal methanogenic overgrowth. And you can start to see the beginning of the colon overgrowth too, right? Like if you have methane overproduction after like the 60 or 90-minute mark, then we're starting to think that you have colonic methanogen overgrowth. And again, like you could still do PHGG, you could still do BioGaia, you could possibly incorporate some allicin or some of these antimicrobials on board. Really, again, it's just whether or not you need a lot of aggressive motility support really is the difference between the two, in my opinion. But the other thing is that you can see this sometimes pop up on stool testing. So I know that this is a part, oh God, what is it? The Genova GI Effects has the Methanobrevibacter smithii on it, and sometimes that'll show up positive. I don't really utilize that test. It's very expensive and not super good for what you get, in my opinion, although it has some redeeming qualities to it. The GI map I stopped using about a year ago, but to the best of my knowledge, the GI map has never had Methanobrevibacter on it. Have you seen a GI map as of recently? I don't think they've added that, correct?
I think they have methanogens.
Really?
I'm pretty sure they do. Let me look it up.
Maybe it is on there. So maybe that's a more new addition, or maybe I'm just forgetting.
It has Methanobacter. It has the family.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
It doesn't
Same
necessarily
thing.
have. Yes.
Okay, close enough. Okay, so GI map maybe is able to look at that reasonably well. The way that I usually assess for it is just like a 16S based stool test typically. So something like Thrive or, Ubiome back in the day would have done this, or Biome Site. But usually on those kinds of tests, like the 16S test, you want to see Methanobrevibacter showing up at like 0.1% or less. Hey guys, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, click the like button, and leave a comment down below with the videos that you would like to see me do next. Doing all of those really helps support the channel and support my efforts in making as many videos as possible for you guys. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.